Hello, we're live. We're live with Liam Fry. There he is.
Hello, hello, hello.
Liam has given me a sneak preview
Oh,
of the
it's a sneaky
finished
one.
look, and it is absolutely banging, I must say.
Stop it, Lee. Just stop it.
Very, very impressive. So I'm going to pass you over to Liam now. He doesn't need any further introduction than that. One of our main staffs. Liam, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Lee. Much appreciated. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this live. We know there's so many other places you can be on, hopefully in nice sunny weather like it is here down on the south coast. As Lee has mentioned, my name's Liam Fry. I am the owner and director of Tony Wood Hairdressing, and I'm super proud to be stood in front of you guys to watch one of these cuts I'm going to be delivering to you guys today. So what I'm going to be delivering to you today is a little twist on the short graduation. The short graduation, I'm going to give you a little bit of honesty right now. I've been doing hairdressing for 21 years this year, and I know it's a little bit hard to believe because I look so young, but I've been doing hairdressing for 21 years, and for the first 11, 12 years of my career, I found cutting short hair incredibly difficult. Hi, Laura, how are we doing? And the reason why I found short hair so difficult is because there was things like so many different sectioning patterns, working with different angles on the head. Do I want to create weight, remove weight? So many difficult choices to make when working with short hair. But then I was very fortunate to come across Stafford Education and started working with Tony Wood. Some of you may know him, and got introduced to Stafford Education and working with Lee and the team. And throughout the summer, I retrained myself in cutting hair using all of the MVQ level 2 and level 3 Stafford Education recipes. And after 11 years of doing hairdressing, I finally found a way to really understand what I was doing, why I was doing it, and what I wanted to create. Because before I did LSE, Lee Stafford Education, I found when I was working with short haircuts, and I don't know if you guys can relate to this, I'll cut some of the hair, work through the haircut, realize it's not quite sitting right, go back a bit to a previous part of the haircut, work my way forward again, take weight out of it, go back again. So you're sort of meandering your way to the end result. I'd get there, but it'd take 10 times longer. And that was one of my biggest challenges with short hair. And nowadays, with Lee Stafford Education, with the recipes, the great thing about them is that they are so direct. They're so clear. They're broken down to the nth degree. And I find them so much more enjoyable to learn and work and also deliver to you guys today. So the short graduation is the cut that I'm going to be working today. Hi there, Rebecca. How are we doing? So I'm going to be working today. I'm going to give you a little close-up of what we're doing. Majority of this haircut is the short graduation. So if you look back at all the sectioning that you do, the short graduation, there's a couple of little different pieces in there, but the majority of this haircut is the short graduation. So hopefully you guys can sort of see what I do here and maybe even recreate your own little variation of the short graduation yourself. So the section pattern, let's very first and foremost work with that. Normally, we'd take a horseshoe section all the way around the back of the head. But what we're doing here is we're going to isolate still with a horseshoe section. Let me see if we can see that. But we work up and around the top of the crown and then back down to the other recession, keeping it nice and even, still doing the comb check, making sure you're nice and even either side. But we're taking the sections wider on the top of the head, so we've got a real strong top section there to work with later. We then, below that, with a center back parting, create 2 successive triangle sections, which all come around towards the temporal at the front and exactly the same on the other side, leaving us with the bottom section where all the graduation is going to be. And for time and efficiency today, I have already just popped in one side of the graduation. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to revisit that a little bit. I want to share with you what I do and what I find really easy with using the Lee Stafford Education recipe. And one of the main thing is, and I don't know if the teachers there will be listening to, they'll know this about this, is the hitchhiking. Why do we hitchhike and how do we hitchhike? Because it's super important when we're doing these recipes that we are making sure we're following them to the nth degree.
So get this clear in my head. So basically, it's exactly the same short graduation on the underneath, the way you cut that. But with the top, it's much wider here. Rather than it being the recessions, you're going down to the temple. And
Let's have a little closer look.
Is that right? And then you're going back a little bit before the crown rather than behind the crown. Is that right?
You got it. You got it. So we've got a wider section from the side to side. So we've not got the comb and a half. We're going a little wider today. We're going a little bit stronger on the fringe. And then we've split this horseshoe section that goes all the way around the back of the head here into two. Okay, so we've split into smaller triangle sections. And these sections are going to be the different part of the short graduation haircut that we're going to be doing today.
I like that. I like that little twist you've got already just on the pre-sectioning.
It's a great thing about... Oh, sorry, Lee, go ahead.
I'm just saying, you can literally just change the pre-sectioning. You could have done exactly the same cut, and just doing a slightly different pre-sectioning is going to give you a slightly different shape, right?
Yeah, it's pre-section. I mean, there are so many... we all know there's so many different ways to cut hair. We all know that there's so many different sectioning patterns we can use. But for me personally, I like to sort of break it down using the LSE sectioning patterns, but put a little twist onto it to create full control on what I'm doing. If I haven't made these sections super clean and super tidy, I'm going to get lost because all this long hair on top here is going to fall on top and I won't know where I'm going to be working. So keeping these sectioning super crisp and super tidy is really, really important. Right, so I'm wetting this doll head down. I'm going to start by just revisiting this side here, okay? This is the area that I've already cut, and we've also put in our guide, which goes all the way around to the front of the head here. It's just so we can show you. So we've got our little short section here. Here, that is our slither guide that we do with all the short graduation haircuts. So as long as we put that guide in there, and we also got our vertical section going down the back here, creating our graduation. And as we know, when we're working through the back of the head here, so just want to make sure you guys can see. Yeah. So really, because my body position is going to be different from what you guys would do at home. So I want you to see exactly what I'm doing here. We're normally stood directly behind our section. I'm going to be stood to the side just so that you guys can see. And we're going to take in vertical sections, pulling the hair straight out from the head, 90 degrees from the head. But we're also taking the finger angle straight down into the nape of the neck, as if we're almost, if I carried on cutting, I'd carry on straight through to the back of the neck there, okay? And we continue that with no over direction, no under direction, just making sure that hair is coming directly out from the head. Not only do we go from vertical sectioning, but as we move around the head, we slightly pivot it, so we're starting to become a little bit more diagonal, just for comfort. By the time we get round to the front, we're by no means diagonal, but we're certainly not vertical. We're just coming off of vertical, just to make sure that we can get our fingers right into the nape of the neck there and make our lives a little bit easier as well. Yeah. And then we work around to the back here. As soon as we get to the back of the ear, we leave this long piece out of the way, and then we come on to the difficult side. So I've got the joy of performing in front of all you guys, keeping it, working on the difficult side here. Sorry, go ahead, Lee.
How long did it take you, Liam, before you were kind of as confident on both sides of the haircut?
Honest answer is when I started doing LSE. It's crazy. When I was doing it myself and learning myself, my body position was all over the place. My finger position was all over the place. I was doing this, I was doing this, I was doing that. It was becoming really disorganized for me. So when I realized using the hitchhiking, going from one way, and what we mean by that is when we're moving around to the left side of the head, our thumb is pointing to the left side, and when we move to the other side, we make sure our finger position changes and our fingers are pointing towards the ground, and we move to the right-hand side of the head. Is when we learned that, to be honest with you, Lee. That's when I got symmetry within my haircut seamlessly, and just made my life easier and body position, so I wasn't breaking my back just to get the results that I was after.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you know, unless you've done these short graduations for many, many years, it's hard to appreciate how easy this makes it for you, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. Yeah, 100%. Just having that, it's just that little nugget of using that hitchhiking. It's super crucial because my body position stays the same. I'm able to stand at the back. I don't have to move my body to the side and peer around and look at what I'm looking at. My body position stays the same. All I'm doing is going from pointing my fingers up is to pointing my fingers down. And that my body position is the same. I can see everything that I'm doing, which is the beauty of it as well. So far, guys, I've been chatting away and I've been saying a lot. If there's any questions that are not too clear, anything that you're not found clear, by all means, please ask away. I'll answer as much as I possibly can for you.
So Laura's just asked, what is your worst experience with any type of haircut you have done?
What is my worst experience? That's a really good question. Funny enough, it's with a short haircut. In a salon that I used to work at, not the one that I work in now. I just qualified as a hairdresser, and my then employer decided to throw me on the salon floor with a short hairstyle. And I started cutting her hair. And I thought, yeah, I've got this, of my 18 years old, thinking that I was super cool and thinking that I knew everything and knew how to do everything. Started cutting away, cutting, and then my client all of a sudden said, can you please stop? I didn't want a masculine haircut, please. Can you get someone else to come and look after me? I went off to get someone, felt like I was just been punched in the gut. I went in the toilet, had tears coming out of my eyes. I was absolutely gutted, and yeah, my hardest one that I've dealt with, it wasn't, it was redeemable, but it wasn't what she was after. So fortunately enough, it was just a slight little tweak on the haircut and they actually remedied it for me. So that was the hardest thing I've ever dealt with. Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to take my first cut here. As we can see, that hair is coming directly out from the head. My finger position is directly over the section I'm cutting. I'm not moving it from side to side to over direct or under direct. I've got my guide underneath there. I've got my slither guide at the top and my guide at the vertical guide. And I'm just going to come in and cut that section there. Continue that down to the nape of the neck.
We've got a good question here from Alex Taylor. It says, what's your favourite aspect of the hairdressing industry?
There's so many. That's a really good question. Thank you for that. My favourite aspect is that I get up every day, I'm going into work, and I'm not doing the same thing day in and day out. I think that's my favourite aspect of this job. I think the fact that I'm not going into an office or I'm not going into a factory to do the same thing day in and day out. I get to choose what I do. I get to make changes in haircuts. I get to meet different people day in and day out. And for me personally, that's my favorite part of the job. And not only that, it's making people feel good. I know it sounds bizarre, but yes, we cut hair, but ultimately at the end of the day, we just make people feel good. Am I right?
And now you're a salon owner, how do you find managing people? Do you enjoy that challenge?
Do you know what managing people is? I think there's managing and there's developing people. Managing is a hard job. It's a hard job. However, it's the development of people is what I love. I'll get people who come into the salon who are not that confident with doing hairdressing, and I try to help them grow. I try to give them a platform to grow and shine, and I try and make sure that they are bigger and a better of a stylist when they finish with us than they did when they walked through the door. So it's more if you want to class managing, it's more for me, it's developing people rather than managing them. So we're just working around the head here, Lee, and I'm starting to slightly pivot my section. So as you can see, I'm no longer vertical. I'm actually coming down at a slight angle.
Makes it so much easier, doesn't it, that angle? I mean, when we first developed this, we had them sections vertical at the back, and it was tough. And the minute you just put it on an angle, it just all slotted into place effortlessly. Makes
sense, doesn't it?
It really does.
So it's the small things. It's those small things which makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. Tracy said, how long did it take you before you mastered the short grad?
Mastered, that's a crikey. Depends what it class as mastering. Have I mastered it? I believe I'm very good at it. Mastering is a different thing. Maybe I'm trying to be humble, I don't know. But I think personally, I'm always learning with short grads. Short grad. Oh, sorry, Lee, go on.
I think we should let everyone else be the judge of that when they see your finished look.
Oh, God, yeah.
That looked mastered to me, mate.
It looks all right, doesn't it? We'll see what they say at the end. Let's just hold fast on that one, Lee.
Look banging, mate.
It's a little bit different, but I'm really excited to share with you all.
Well, the thing is with the short grad is that you could literally do this on your nan. You know, the look that you've done, the finished look you've done, could be done on some supermodel for a Gucci campaign. You know, I mean, and anyone in between. I mean, the short grad is just so versatile, isn't it?
It really is, and it's how you dress it as well. You know, you can dress it very safely, but you can really play with it and get that texture going throughout the hair, and just have it's just about having fun with hair. I think we see so much on Instagram and social media in general. Look at these brilliantly perfect haircuts, and we think to ourselves, but maybe as learners, we think to ourselves, do I need to be that precise? Do I need to be that regimented? And the answer to that is no, you don't. You can be as creative and as free-flowing as you like with your hair cutting. And this is the great thing about the hair. Play with it, enjoy it. Don't feel like you've got to just be absolutely perfect from the get-go, because it's just not possible. Enjoy the process.
This is a good question from Rebecca. She said, is this also called a pixie cut?
Ooh, depends what people class as a pixie cut, Lee. Changing the lengths would create it as a pixie cut. You're absolutely right. Yeah, if we decided to take the sides in as short as we do at the back, I guess that would be a pixie cut. It's just making sure we leave that little bit of extra length on top so we can play with that and taking it nice and tidy in the back and side. So it's a variation of the short graduation, isn't it?
Would you be more inclined to do a short uniform layer on a pixie cut?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends if you want that sort of weight on top there, or if that uniform layer is going to give you. I suppose it makes a bit more sense to use a uniform layer, absolutely. But I think if you're incorporating things like this nice tidy graduation into the nape of the neck there, that's going to give that real nice. I mean, maybe if you mix the two together, Lee, you know, maybe if you went with the short graduation at the back and then went into the uniform layer onto the front.
That'd be great.
You know, that's going to give it that weight and that texture and that length that you may need for that pixie cut.
Yeah. We was actually talking about this before we came online about, you know, how you section, because sometimes if you cut a short grad and then they come back and you pre-section it, but the middle bit is quite, you know, it's now cut short from the last haircut. It is a bit more of a challenge to section it out of the way, isn't it? How do you get over that bit?
Well, let's look at these sections that I've got at the back here. So let's say we wanted to try and section this at the back, okay? So what I tend to do personally is making sure that we've got the hair super wet. Wetter the better. And if we really want to get a bit of tidy section, use the comb as flat as you can to the head and be stronger with your sectioning. And then that way, by flattening the hair, you can really see your sections that little bit tidier and a little bit cleaner. And also when you're trying to section the hair with clips out of the way, take one of the clips, for example, like this, and then you flatten the hair down and then lay the clip on top of the hair. So you're then flattening it rather than twisting it all up or trying to bunch it up into a bump. We want to flatten it onto the head as well. So there's multiple ways of doing it, but for me personally, it's making sure you've got really strong sectioning and then flatten the hair whilst the hair's super wet. That will keep the shorter hair out of the way. Lovely. Okay, so I've done the back section now. Nice and tidy. Take that off so you guys can see. There we are. We've got a short graduation going through the back there. You can see it goes nicely into the nape of the neck. We've stopped just behind the back of the ears on both sides. And now we're going to move on to the sections above. Lovely. So I'm just going to section these top sections out of the way.
We've got an interesting question here from Bon. He said, hello, Bon, how you doing, buddy?
Hi,
he
Bon.
says, have you had any experience for running out of time and cutting a short grad? And what would you recommend for students to shorten the time it will take you to do a short grad?
So I spend, it varies from cut to cut, but I spend more time on the cutting with the shorter hairstyles than I do with the longer hairstyles. I find I can dry the hair off a lot quicker, obviously, with shorter hair. So because we can spend less time drying, we can focus on the cutting that little bit more. So for me personally, it is that practice, as always it is in life, to help speed us up. Because again, it's not necessarily about how quick you get to the end result, it's what it's like at the end. So we want to slow things down if necessary. But if we've just left school, left college, sorry, forgive me, and we're in the salon all of a sudden, we're working on heads of hair, and we've got to stick to timings, which is super important. I would say because you've got less time to spend on the actual blow drying itself, you don't actually have to spend as much time as you do with regards to the cutting, personally. So if you can sacrifice anything, sacrifice a bit of the time on the drying. Awesome.
I mean, I actually find that, there is a bit of work to be done on the pre-sectioning with the short grad. There is. But because of all the things that we've talked about already about the short grad, I find that, it's the most quickest and painless way of cutting a short graduated haircut. Because once you've done the pre-sectioning, you just go through the actual, the recipe. You don't really have to do too much kind of cross-checking or adjusting at the end, do you?
No, not at all. And that's the great thing about it, because you're checking the hair as you go. You don't have to, again, a bit like when I was learning to do hairdressing with shorter haircuts, I'd have to go back over sections time and time again. I think with something like that pre-section, as you mentioned, Lee, it just gives you a really clear guide on where you should be working and where you shouldn't be working. So if I was to say focus on anything, like you said, it's just focus on that pre-sectioning. If you can speed your pre-sectioning up, the cutting is going to follow suit even quicker.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just splitting this bottom section in two so I can see my guide underneath, because I don't want to lose my guide at all. If you ever lose your guide during this haircut, either take your sections a little bit thinner or just go back a couple of sections until you find it again. That's really important we don't lose this guide. There we are. Awesome. So my body position is going to remain the same. I'm going to be stood behind every section that I'm going to be cutting from. So I'm going to move over here so you guys can see. The hair now is no longer, we're going to be bringing the hair out vertically. We're going to be bringing the hair out horizontally. So we want to start building weight. We want to make sure that we're creating a shape as we move around the head, following our guide, that slither guide that we put in before. So I'm going to find our guide, comb the hair up, and comb the head down. Find our guide underneath. There she is. Lift the hair up so you can see there's the guide underneath there. And then we're going to take our horizontal section, cut straight across. And just as we did when we popped in the guide, we want to take small sections as we move around the head. And I'm going to move the head so you guys can see. Again, we comb the hair out. We find our guide, you can see that underneath there. And then we cut. Take a section horizontally. Comb the underneath to make sure the hair's going in the right direction. Then comb the head down to the previous section. Find your guide, you can see that underneath there. And we work around the head. And that's just simply continuing that shape up the head, creating a bit more of a weight line as we move up. And again, horizontal section. See my guide. I don't know if you guys can hear, but my dog is sat next to me and he's snoring in his bed. So if you hear a dog snoring, that's Link.
Emily has asked, is this a popular haircut in the salon?
The short graduation is incredibly popular. Obviously, there's variations, constant variations of it. However, the aspect's still the same. People love that tidy line into the nape of the neck there. They love that shape. It's a classic shape. It's almost like, it's classic as the bob. It's one of those keepers that I'll be using day in, day out in the salon. So 100%.
Yeah. And Ellie's also asked, how was your first experience when you did it?
So when I first did it, as I mentioned before, whether it's a short graduation before I did at least after education, it was incredibly difficult. Again, I didn't know where I needed to be stood or how to hold the hair. Like I said before, it wasn't until I did the least after education recipe, short graduation recipe, was it clearer to me. So no longer was it confusing. It gave me guidance. It gave me that, as we say, that sat nav, that point A to point B, and it cleared up any of my sort of unknowns. For example, how should I be holding my scissors? Where should my fingers be pointing? There's so many sort of, you go into any other colleges around the country, they'll tell you 10 different ways of how to do this haircut. The great thing, and this is what I wish that I had when I was learning like you guys are, is to have something this thorough, something you can refer back to. We've not only got those amazing videos, but we've also got the manuals that come along with it as well, which break it down to another level. So it's to have something like that at your stage of your learning, it's incredibly powerful.
So tell me this, how many years were you doing a short grad the other way?
11, 12 years.
So the thing is, you had sort of the what do you call it? The insight of kind of doing a short grad and struggling for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, it must have been a revelation. But the students haven't got anything to compare it to at the moment. They're probably just seeing a lot of sectioning.
So I can only liken it to this, Lee. It's like when you first get into a car to learn to drive a car. You've seen other people do it for a long time. You kind of think you know what you're doing. But the reality is, until you get sat in that driver's chair, you really haven't got a clue. And for me personally, and it's for me, it feels like you're getting a head start on everything. So to have these recipes there for you to jump into straight away when you get into least left education is so good. It really is. And I'm kind of glad that all the students that are listening right now don't experience it the way I have. And that's the great thing about progression, is that things get better, and that's what we all strive for. And you guys that are hit with least after education colleges have just got a better quality of learning than I could have ever dreamed of. All right. So we've just done one slither section all the way around. We're going to then go above it again and take another section and bring that down on top of the one that we've just cut. What about yourself, Lee? Can you remember back when you first started doing these haircuts, how you felt?
I struggled for years and years. I mean, I was right with a short uniform layer because, that's a much easier haircut in comparison to this. The short grade where you're cutting it shorter on the underneath and you're building up to weight on both sides, I found it incredibly painful for many, many, many years. And then one day, it was Stacey Broughton. This is Stacey Broughton, my mentor. This was the technique he shared with me. And as soon as he shared it with me, all the pennies just started dropping all over the place. And I was like, this is so simple.
It's consistency, isn't it? Yeah. I found my consistency in my haircuts were dreadful before.
Yeah.
When my client would come and say, "Can I have the same as last time?" I'll go, "What?"
Yeah.
What do you mean same as last time? Do you want a slight difference in it? No, I want exactly the same.
Yeah, it's a bit like, we talk about the sat nav, where you go around someone's house, you get lost, but you eventually get there, and then you've got to go around there again next week, and you're none the wiser because you got lost the first time,
Exactly. Awesome. Starting to really see that shape now. So again,
are you pulling it down? Are you pulling it down a bit more than lifting it up?
We're bringing it ever so slightly down to the previous section. So we're always building more weight as we go up the head. Okay, so if we continue bringing the hair out from the head, we'd create a bit more of a uniform layer, wouldn't we? We'd carry on the same length up and around. But what we're doing is we're directing the hair down to the previous section. So we're going to slowly be building more weight as we move up the head.
Liliana says, does short hair give more confidence to clients?
Oh, good question. Does it give more confidence to clients? I suppose there's lots of factors you've got to take into consideration before you do a short hairstyle on clients. You've got to look at their suitability, and I suppose all of that comes in with the consultation. You know, you've got things like you've got to look at face shape. Face shape's super important when you're looking at maybe doing a fringe on a client. How short you go is super important, and suitability in regards to will the client be able to invest their time into styling their hair, because all of a sudden, if they got super curly hair and all of a sudden you do a really short hairstyle on them, are they going to be able to spend the time that you spent on it to create the same look? So does it give people confidence? I think it can do 100%, but I think as the hairdresser, we've got to be really careful in what we are advising our clients with short hair, because sometimes it can look fantastic and sometimes it can't. It's not quite right. And it can be something as simple, like I did with my first client. I did the short haircut on to take the sides a little bit too short and it looked a little bit too masculine for her. So it's just that those little tweaks there, and an understanding of what you're doing is super, super important. There we are. So working through this now. Onto the top two sections here. So I just want to show you very quickly. These two section bumps here, they're going to be dropped down. I'm going to split these in two so I can see my guide, so I don't lose my guide again. So you guys can see, take a section around towards the front. Splitting this section into two. Twist that section up and out the way, just pop it around the front bump there. And then split this side into two as well.
Rebecca's just asked, why have you left them longer pieces out by the side?
Oh, well, we can forget about those until a later point, because these are really easy to blast off afterwards, aren't they, Lee? So in the short graduation recipe, we've got our slither section, and because there are small pieces at the bottom, what I'm going to be doing later is just going to refine it up and around the ear, connecting the short back with the short layer that we got at the front there as well.
And Jamie Lee Curtis has said, how long would you give yourself to do this haircut in the salon?
Again, varies depending on the salon that you work at. Different expectations of some salons do haircuts in half an hour. For me personally, I like to spend an hour on my clients, but that includes the whole consultation. It includes the shampoo, blow dry, and the cutting as well. So for me personally, and it does vary from salon to salon, so please don't think that what I'm saying is 100% the way that you got to do it. But 1 hour, I find a really nice spot to complete these cuts on.
I suppose it's chicken and an egg, because to spend an hour on a haircut, you've got to be able to charge a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
And you only charge a reasonable amount, I suppose you start building a reputation and your confidence and your quality.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like I said, it really does vary. Some people, to be honest with you, give me 3 hours. I can spend 3 hours on this haircut. If I really wanted to spend my time on a haircut, I can spend all day on it. When we come into the colleges and we teach these haircuts, we spend a whole day on one haircut sometimes. You know, that's to break it down, to really understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I think it's really important to know that every salon does it differently, and how you do it is completely up to either your employer or yourself individually. So it's for me, 1 hour is a sweet spot. Okay, just again, we're directing the hair back down to the previous section. Horizontal section, I can see my guide underneath. Continuing that line all the way around the head, continuously building up weight as the hair goes up and around the head. Fantastic. So we're chatting away, and what are we? We're 35 minutes into this live stream at the moment, guys. And I know for a fact, if I wasn't chatting away and talking to you guys, imagine if you're speaking to your client, I can still get this done within the hour, 100%. Again, making sure you're practicing and putting as much effort into your learning as possible. you'll be able to be banging out these haircuts in no time whatsoever. Start to see the shape at the front now on this side. Where are we? There we go. The shape's coming in around here. We've got a little bit more of a rounded shape on the side there where the weight is building. So that's really lovely to see, because that's going to continue onto this front section in a little bit. And going onto this side. Bringing the hair down to the previous section. Good stuff. Again, working around towards the front of the head. Got my guide there. Bringing that hair down to the previous section as before, and then cut your line around towards the front of the head. Last section here, and then we're going to move on to our big section on the top here.
Oh, there's the big section on top.
The big section on top here. That's going to give us the real focal point and the change and the twist in this haircut.
So I've got a competition this week for a goodie box of Lee Stafford products. And the question is to you guys, how many Big Tens have our college trainers achieved in the last 7 years? So amongst all our partner colleges, we've had 18 partner colleges. How many Big Tens? And the way that a college trainer achieves a Big Ten is they work on the recipe, like short grad, like Liam's doing at the moment, until the college trainer feels that they can do it as good as what Liam can do it, or I can do it in the video. And then the college trainer films themselves doing that recipe. It's then sent to one of the staffs like Liam, who assesses it on two simple things. Did they follow the steps to the T, and did they get the same benchmark, the same result? If they do, or if they did, they get a Big Ten certificate, they get an email, a congratulations email from me. And I just want to make a point that we have a 19% referral rate at Lee Stafford Education. So 19% of the Big Ten attempts by college trainers are referred, which means they do it again, which just goes to prove that it's not about turning up to get these Big Tens. They really have to be earned by the college trainers, which makes it all that more incredible. So how many Big Tens have been achieved by Lee Stafford Education college trainers?
I've seen some of those videos, Lee. They're fantastic, mate. They're really great to see, and seeing those college trainers performing like that is fantastic. It's great to see them learning and taking on these recipes so well. And then they go on to deliver it flawlessly to the students, which I think is awesome. Lovely. Okay, let's have a little closer look, shall we? So we've got the short grad going all the way around. You can see the weight that's building up through the sides here and around towards the front there. Again, we've still got these little long pieces we're going to deal with later, but the shape's there. Remember, we've got the little sections either side and they're building weight. But we're going to move on to this front section now. And this is where it's going to be the fringe. We're going to be standing directly at the front of the head. Remember, as in the video, so we nail our feet to the floor. We don't move. But what we're going to be doing is we're taking horizontal sections, bringing the fringe down and cutting it ever so slightly longer than we would do normally. If we want to go a little bit more commercial, we could probably go a little bit shorter. But today, we're going to go a little bit more editorial, a bit more, maybe something you'd use for a photo shoot, but like Lee said, something for Gucci or something in Vogue magazine or something, you know. So we're going to be taking horizontal sections from one side to the other.
That's a big
bringing the head forward.
Fringe.
Sorry?
That's a big fat fringe.
It's a big old fat fringe. There's something to take in consideration here. We've taken this fringe a lot bigger, which means our styling will change ever so slightly. And I'm going to get into styling a little bit anyway. Wrap drying is still absolutely crucial within this haircut. Okay, we want to keep the hair in its natural form. We don't want the hair to have too much lift or too much shape to it, because we want to be able to cross-check and look at it afterwards as well, just to see it in its natural state. And the great thing about wrap drying the hair and putting it into its natural fall, you know for a fact if a client goes home and they do it themselves, they're not going to see different lengths throughout the hair. They're going to be able to recreate it a little bit more easily themselves at home. So wrap drying is super, super important. But because this fringe is ever so slightly wider, the hair on the outside of this fringe could easily fall over and create a disconnection. So if this is what I'm going to be doing through here, is that I will wrap dry it and it comes forward and over the face, rather than bringing it from side to side on the sides here. So we're going to be wrap drying it from side to side across the head, rather than bringing around the sides to wrap dry. And then that way, the fringe is going to sit really nicely for us at the front of the head here. Okay, so first section, our feet are firmly planted on the floor. Going to choose our length. Lovely. Going to go to the tip of the nose. I'm going to cut a straight line. There we go. So that's my first section there. And move around, so I'm going to shimmy around. So I'm going to continue this straight line around. So it's not like with the fringe in, say, the one length above, where you stay in one position, you cut from one side to the other. We're going to move around the head. So we're creating a straight line, not creating an arch.
Guys, I'd just like to say that you're all way off. Anything under 100 is cold, cold, cold. It's more hundreds and hundreds. So I'm just giving you a little clue there.
There's been quite a few. So we've taken the bulk of that hair off there. Go back in. And what I'm going to do now, because I wanted to get rid of all that long hair there, I'm going to go back in. I think, do you know what? I'm going to make that a little bit shorter. So I'm thinking I want to connect it with these shorter pieces on the side here. So I'm going to go back in, bring the hair down again. I'm going to use the bridge of the nose as my guide. And I'm just going to pop that fringe back in at that length.
And give you one more clue. It's 1,000 something.
1,350.
1,350. That's Liam's guess.
I want to win the prizes. There we are. Perfect. Starting to connect from one side to the other now. I'm going to bring another section just behind the previous one, a horizontal section, and then bring that one forward too. Brilliant. What about the guys that are watching? I'd love to know what sort of challenges you guys have had with the short haircuts. How long do you like to have with your short haircuts? Is it something that you like to spend longer on, 2 hours, 3 hours, or it's something you can blast out in 30 minutes and get the next one in your chair? What do you think?
Yeah, I think speed comes with experience, don't you?
Absolutely. I'd rather one of my team be super slow and get it right rather than going super fast and getting it wrong, personally. So I think it's speed comes in time, funny enough.
Yeah. I think once you've mastered the technique, once you can get it to a Big Ten standard, even if it takes you 10 hours, then you know you can work on your speed then. But if you can't do a Big Ten standard, even if you've been given 10 hours, what hope have you got in half an hour?
Certainly. Absolutely. I think for all the learners that are watching at the moment, just keep in the back of your mind, slow and steady wins a race. It really does.
Yeah.
Don't feel that you've got to be smashing these haircuts out super quickly.
It's not a sprint, is it? It's a marathon.
Not at all, no. I've still got team members that have been qualified for over a year with me and they still struggle with the short hairstyles. And that's just, I think, and I don't know if it's similar to a lot of the salons out there, we get a lot of long hairstyles and I find, like the long waves, so it's, Pinterest and Instagram friendly stuff. But the short hairstyles kind of go amiss. And I find a lot of the younger team that I have come into the salon now, they shy away from the shorter hairstyles. And goodness me, if you've got an opportunity to cut a short head of hair and you've got a bit of time to spend on it, spend that time on it because it's going to pay you back no end later on down the line. Don't shy away from it. Short hairstyles can be stunning. We're getting there. All right.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a 60s feel to it, this big heavy fringe. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I love heavy fringes. This, again, taking this a little bit shorter and just allowing the eyes to peek through, it gives it a real sort of, I think it's a bit of a sort of sexy fringe, if you ask me. It gives it that sort of really strong, beautiful focal point to the haircut. So all that hair is coming forward, cutting on the horizontal. Lovely. Last few cuts. And there we are. Okay, so that's the general shape. All these side bits, I'm going to take those off in a second. But you can see where you've got the short graduation going through the back, and as it comes through to the front, this is where all the weight is. It's where it's all sitting really heavy and gives us that real strong focal point to the haircut. What I'm going to do very, very quickly before I show you the last bit, I'm going to start getting a little bit of personalizing my finished look. So we're going to take off these long pieces. And the great thing about this, I've got my guide from the short bit at the back here, where I put in the short graduation through there. And I've got my guide at the front here, where it was from my previous section that I cut before. So all I'm going to do is come in with my scissors. You see that okay? I'm going to turn that to the side just so you guys can see a bit more. And just bring it up. And connect the two together. That's one side.
Nice.
And then on the other side here, again, I'm going to lift this up a little bit so you guys can see a bit more. Combing that hair down. And we're just going to follow our short point here to our other short point here. We're just going to create a shape that goes up, exposes some of the ear, and then come around the other side and connect the dots. Lovely. And that's your shape. Now, the important part, before we start refining it and texturizing and making it a little bit more our own, is that we've got to put a good wrap dry onto it. And to save time, because it does take time to do that, is what I want to do is just revisit it quickly. So with wrap drying, we want to make sure that we're wrapping the hair and drying the hair at the same time around the head, going from one side of the head to the other side of the head. This way, it's going to give us natural fall. It's going to be able to allow us to really check the cut and make sure it's all sitting beautifully and that the client can recreate and get these looks at home as well. And it just gives us a real good idea of how the hair is sitting and how it's going to sit when they go in and wash their hair themselves too.
And you leave them long pieces till the end. Yeah.
Simplicity for me. I don't need to worry about them because they're not going to change the way they look at the haircut for me. Again, there's a million and one ways to cut this haircut. Could I cut it off before? Absolutely. But sometimes it's nice to leave little long bits so you can look at them and go, how long do I really want them? Rather than blasting them off at the beginning of a haircut. You can
I suppose also, because you put that line in there, you had a nice guide to go up to, didn't you?
Yeah, I had my point of reference there as well. It just gives me variation on the haircut and allows me to get different results and change it on the fly sometimes, so leaving those little long bits out. So wrap drying the hair nice and smooth around the head, and then we straighten the hair through. Now, that's what it's like when it's wet. Now, I'm going to get the one when it's dry. And on this one, I've left it a section out in the middle. I'm going to show you where I've left it out to create something a little bit more editorial for you guys. So this is the finished look. As we can see, a really strong fringe coming round to the sides here. You can see where we went up and over the top of the ear and around on the other side. And we've got these long bits, this section I took out the top here. And as I was cutting this haircut earlier, I thought, you know what, I want to leave this long bit. So I want to do something with this cut, because without this, it still looks pretty safe. It still looks, you can see someone walking down the street a bit, albeit with a parting so they can see through their fringe. However, I wanted to leave this long bit because I wanted to do something with it afterwards, just to have a little bit of fun and show off what you can do, and just taking a section out and disconnecting it from the rest of the haircut.
Right. And you wouldn't have to leave it that long. You could have left it just.
No. I've not even touched it yet, Lee. This is just left as it is. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to leave it. I'm going to think, right, how do I want to work with this? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just start moving the hair around and playing with it a little bit. I want to sort of see, where's the hair falling? Okay. And this comes just behind our previous section where this fringe falls from. So if I was to bring this all forward, we can take bits of this, and I thought, you know what, I want some sort of tendrils of hair falling through it. So I'm going to take my scissors, take the shank of them. I'm not going to close them. I'm just going to run the scissors down the hair to create some softness and texture within this fringe. So that if I was to do a photo shoot, I want something to stand out from everything else, especially in any sort of competition work. You know, at the moment, we've got a beautiful pink, which I was really fortunate. One of my team did this hair color for me. It looks amazing. So I said to him, can you just look at Lee Stafford Education and think, I want that pink and I want it on a blockhead. And they did that for me. So I'm really fortunate for them guys to do that. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through this fringe here that I've just left out that section and just use the shank of my scissors.
Looks great. And did you scissor overcomb the nape of them?
Yes, so I'm going to show you what I did there as well, because I used my thinning scissors with that too.
Yeah.
So through the front here, with this piece here, what you want to do, where we've got something that's incredibly geometric, incredibly smooth and very, very pristine, which looks fantastic. However, I wanted to give it a little bit of life and a bit of texture. So by just grabbing that section through the top there, giving it a little twist, and then back pushing it a little bit, create that bit of texture, to create a bit of movement within this style, can give you something sort of extraordinary, shall we say, rather than just the ordinary. Just work up through the fringe there, and that would fall over the top really, really nicely. So I'm super fussy. I could do this all day long.
That's great.
Lovely.
Really strong. I love them little bits just hanging over.
Yeah, it just gives it something else, doesn't it?
Opens it up,
It's
doesn't it?
really nice. So last little thing there then. So I'm going to go through the back here. I've got my thinning scissors here. It's going to do scissor over comb through the back just to soften it a little bit. We've created a really strong shape through here, so I just want to give it a little bit of texture. So I'm going to be bringing my comb in and just thinning as we go, just to give it a softer edge, so it gets rid of any potential lines that could be within the haircut, softens around the edges as well. So as you can see, my scissors are moving almost double the speed of the comb, constantly moving as I move up the hair, following the shape of the head. I'm not following in and around, I'm sort of coming in, and as we go to the occipital bone, we come on out from the hair there.
That looks really good, mate. That really does look beautiful. What does everyone else think of that?
What are you thinking, guys?
I think it looks stunning. What's everyone else's thoughts?
There we are. Certainly gives it a little bit of something else, doesn't it?
Mm.
There we go. Fantastic. Good stuff.
Looks great, mate.
There we have it, buddy. There is your short graduation with that slight twist. Let's revisit here. All we've done different is that we brought that really strong fringe at the front there, and we brought the length through the sides on the top here down horizontally to create that weight line that we want there as well, which gives us a really beautiful shape all the way around. Thank you, Rebecca. Really appreciate that. Personally, you wouldn't have it. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I wouldn't expect to see people walking down the street, but I'm glad that you love it as well. That's really cool. Thank you so much. But again, I really appreciate you guys being here and watching these lives. Thanks ever so much, Bon. It's great to hear from you again. Always on the lives. I super appreciate any sort of input from you, buddy. That
looks fantastic. Winner of the competition this week is Rebecca Thompson. She came out with a number 1,840, and the number of Big Tens that our college trainers have achieved is 1,827.
Wow.
Amazing.
1,827.
1,827 Big Ten. Oh, look at that little beauty.
What does Link think? 1,800. My God, so many. Even Link's impressed. Look how impressed he looks.
What's his name?
Link.
I thought he said Link. Link. Yeah. Liam, that was brilliant, mate. Really,
cheers,
really
buddy. Appreciate that. Thank you, everyone.
Brilliant. Guys, thank you all for watching again. We shall see you next week. Have a wonderful week at college or whatever you're doing, and take care. See you all soon. Bye.